11 strange and shocking things about Cuba that will leave you speechless. Cuba is a land of paradoxes, mysteries, and unexpected surprises. While the island nation is widely known for its vintage cars, revolutionary history, and breathtaking beaches, there's a hidden side to Cuba that many outsiders have never heard about. From bizarre laws to eerie urban legends, here are 11 of the strangest and most shocking things about Cuba that will completely change how you see this Caribbean country. 1. Cuba has a secret underground medical empire. Cuba has one of the most advanced healthcare systems in the world, despite its struggling economy. The government has developed groundbreaking treatments for diseases such as lung cancer and diabetic foot ulcers, treatments that are often unavailable in the United States. Cuban doctors are also sent around the world on medical missions, creating a multi-million-dollar industry where the Cuban government profits from their expertise. Yet, despite this medical prowess, everyday Cubans often struggle to access basic medicines and healthcare due to shortages. Hospitals may have world-class doctors, but they often lack essential supplies such as bandages, antibiotics, and even aspirin. Many patients must rely on family members abroad to send them medical necessities. Furthermore, while Cuban doctors work in prestigious positions overseas, their salaries at home are staggeringly low, leading many to seek opportunities outside the country. 2. The government controls the internet. And it's shockingly expensive. Cuba has some of the most restricted internet access in the world. Until 2015, Wi-Fi was virtually non-existent for the average citizen. Today, internet access is still tightly controlled, with only government-approved access points. Public Wi-Fi hotspots charge exorbitant fees, and home internet remains a luxury few can afford. The government monitors all online activity, meaning that independent journalism and free speech are highly restricted in the digital sphere. Social media access is limited, and many Cubans use VPNs and underground networks to connect with the outside world. Despite these restrictions, an informal economy for internet access has emerged, where people sell and trade Wi-Fi login credentials or smuggle hard drives filled with international news, movies, and TV shows. The Cuban government's tight grip on digital information ensures that most citizens remain cut off from unfiltered global perspectives. 3. There are more vintage cars than anywhere else in the world due to the U.S. embargo. Cuba has been stuck in a time warp when it comes to automobiles. The streets of Havana are filled with beautifully maintained vintage cars from the 1950s, lovingly repaired and passed down for generations. These classic vehicles have become a global symbol of Cuba, yet they highlight the country's severe economic limitations, where modern cars are rare and prohibitively expensive. With no access to new car imports for decades, Cuban mechanics have become some of the most resourceful in the world, fabricating parts from scratch and repurposing old machinery to keep these relics running. Some vehicles even have mismatched engines from Russian Ladas, or makeshift diesel conversions to improve fuel efficiency. Owning one of these vintage cars is often a sign of status, and many are used as taxis for tourists willing to pay a premium for a nostalgic ride through Havana's colorful streets. 4. Fidel Castro once banned Christmas for nearly 30 years. In 1969, Fidel Castro declared Christmas a capitalist distraction and banned it from being an official holiday. The move was part of an effort to increase productivity, particularly in the sugar industry. Christmas remained unofficially celebrated in private homes, but it wasn't until Pope John Paul II's visit to Cuba in 1998 that the holiday was reinstated as a public holiday. During the decades-long ban, practicing Catholicism was strongly discouraged, and those who celebrated in secret risked being ostracized or labeled as counter-revolutionaries. Despite the official restrictions, many Cubans held on to their traditions, quietly exchanging gifts and attending covert church services. Today, Christmas is once again a festive occasion, but remnants of the ban still linger in the way some older Cubans perceive the holiday. 5. Cuba had its own version of Guantanamo Bay, a mysterious Soviet spy base during the Cold War. The Soviet Union maintained a secret intelligence base in Cuba called Lourdes. Located just outside Havana, this base was one of the largest foreign-run spy operations in history, designed to intercept U.S. communications. The base was abruptly closed in 2001, but many speculate that Russia still maintains covert operations on the island. The base was strategically positioned to monitor military and diplomatic transmissions from the United States, and at its peak, it housed thousands of Soviet intelligence officers. Some reports suggest that Cuba received millions of dollars in financial aid from the USSR in exchange for hosting the base. Although officially abandoned, satellite images and local reports hint that secret intelligence activities might still be conducted there. 6. The government owns every single cow. In Cuba, cows are considered national property, and it is illegal for private citizens to slaughter them for meat. Killing a cow without government permission can result in severe penalties, including long prison sentences. This has led to a black market for beef, with people secretly trading or even stealing cows. Meanwhile, milk and dairy products are heavily rationed, making them rare commodities for the average Cuban. Farmers caught illegally butchering cows risk more severe punishment than those convicted of violent crimes. The restrictions stem from historical food shortages and government control over agriculture, which has led to a unique paradox. Despite Cuba's tropical climate and fertile land, obtaining a simple glass of milk can be a daily struggle for many citizens. The lack of beef has also contributed to the nation's reliance on pork and chicken as primary protein sources. 7. Santeria. The mysterious Afro-Cuban religion that blends Catholicism and witchcraft. Santeria is a unique and deeply rooted religion in Cuba, combining elements of Catholicism with traditional African spiritual beliefs. Many Cubans secretly practice Santeria alongside their Catholic faith, participating in elaborate ceremonies that involve animal sacrifices, spirit possession, and fortune-telling. It is common to see people dressed in all white as part of their spiritual initiation, a practice that fascinates and unnerves outsiders. The religion, originating from the Yoruba people of West Africa, survived slavery and Spanish colonization, evolving into a powerful and widely practiced belief system. Many Cuban homes feature altars adorned with candles, statues, and offerings to Orishas deities, reflecting the deep spiritual connection that many Cubans maintain. Despite government restrictions in the past, Santeria continues to thrive, influencing Cuban culture, music, and even politics. 8. Cuba once tried to create a super cow. In an effort to combat food shortages, Fidel Castro invested in a bizarre scientific project to genetically modify cows to produce more milk. The most famous result was Ubre Blanca, a cow that reportedly produced 4 times the milk of a normal cow. When Ubre Blanca died, she was embalmed and given a national tribute. Despite these efforts, Cuba still struggles with dairy production to this day. Ubre Blanca became a national legend, symbolizing the government's attempt to achieve agricultural miracles despite economic hardships. Statues were built in her honor, and state-run newspapers frequently lauded her achievements. However, the project ultimately failed to revolutionize milk production, and today, dairy remains one of the most tightly rationed goods in Cuba, with many citizens only allowed limited access to milk and cheese. 9. The Cuban Missile Crisis almost ended the world. In 1962, Cuba was at the center of one of the most dangerous confrontations in world history, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, bringing the world to the brink of nuclear war. For 13 tense days, the USS and the USSR engaged in a standoff that could have led to catastrophic consequences. A secret deal was ultimately brokered, and the crisis was averted. But the world was never closer to total destruction. What many don't realize is how close the crisis came to spiraling out of control. At one point, a Soviet submarine commander nearly launched a nuclear torpedo at a U.S. warship, believing war had already begun. The world only avoided disaster due to a last-minute intervention by a lower-ranking officer who convinced the commander to stand down. Today, declassified documents reveal just how high the stakes were and how a single miscalculation could have changed history forever. 10 ghost towns and abandoned sugar mills are everywhere. Hence the backbone of Cuba's economy, the sugar industry has largely collapsed, leaving behind eerie ghost towns filled with abandoned sugar mills. These decaying structures are haunting reminders of Cuba's economic decline, with some villages completely deserted after losing their only source of employment. Many of these mills were once symbols of prosperity, but today they are eerie monuments to the past, attracting urban explorers and ghost hunters alike. Some mills have been repurposed as museums or historical sites, but many remain frozen in time, slowly crumbling under the weight of neglect. Locals tell ghost stories of spirits wandering through the ruins, and some believe that the souls of former workers still haunt these once thriving industrial hubs. 11. Cuba's secret underground economy keeps the country alive. With strict government control over nearly all industries, Cuba has developed a massive black market economy. Known locally as the informal economy, this underground network is how most Cubans survive. Everything from food and gasoline to Wi-Fi passwords and foreign currency is traded under the radar. Even doctors and teachers often participate in side hustles to make ends meet. The Cuban government cracks down on these activities, but they remain essential for daily life. Entire networks of mules, people traveling abroad to bring back goods for resale, have sprung up, supplying Cuban households with essential items that can't be found in government stores. Some Cubans even run underground restaurants and private businesses, risking fines and imprisonment to provide for their families. Despite the risks, the informal economy continues to thrive, allowing Cubans to circumvent state-imposed shortages and bureaucratic hurdles.